Bosnia-Herzegovina began in 1992 as a result of several ethnic conflicts that had existed for several centuries. The war began with the secessions of Slovenia and Croatia, which triggered warfare in both the nations. The secession of Bosnia-Herzegovina in 1992 led to an increase in the violence. Dave provided his perspective on what was occurring at this time.
So I was there in 1992 and 93 for about on and off inside of a 6-month period. There was a war going on between both an internal civil war in Bosnia-Herzegovina. Croatia and Serbia had joined in. My role there was to support UN Security Force resolutions, and we were trying to basically stabilize the country, stop the aggression against the civilian population, and it was a very difficult time in that country's history.
Dozens of UN Security Council resolutions were established in 1992, most of which involved peacekeeping tactics to prevent the violence in the countries from progressing.
Central parts of Bosnia are not unlike the Pacific Northwest. It's a little warmer, but the winters are very cold. The coastal region is more warmer. It's Mediterranean. It's known as the Dalmatian coast. There's about 1,600 islands all up and down that. It stretches from Slovenia and Italy in the north all the way down to Bosnia-Herzegovina in the south. And it's very mountainous, wooded.
The Dalmatian coast, also known as Dalmatia, was the site of several battles which occurred in the city of Nin. The major cities in Dalmatia were mainly controlled by Serbians at the time, which led to forced evacuation of Croatians and Muslims. Refugees who were forced to leave these cities took shelter in areas that were originally tourist attractions.
The war, the Civil War had a huge toll on the population. There were ethnic disputes that have been around for hundreds of years, and seeing the damage that people who were once neighbors, once the war started, reverted to their ethnic issues and did horrible things to their fellow neighbors based on ethnicity. And seeing the damage of that was very difficult.
Bosnia-Herzegovina was divided into 3 different ethnic groups, which included Serbians, Croatians, and Muslims. Serbians wanted the nation to be a predominantly Serbian state, which drove them to committing violent acts against the Croatians and Muslims. The Serbians' goal was ethnic cleansing, which meant expelling the Muslims and Croatians from the country by any means necessary. UN soldiers required specific training that would help them contribute to suppressing this conflict.
My first thoughts were, oh my God, this is real, when the drill instructor started yelling, but it was really what I wanted to do. I wanted to be far away and do something after high school and see the world. It's definitely an eye-opener for a snot-nosed 17-year-old who's never experienced anything like that. But I'd say everything, got progressively more interesting and intense. I went through basic Navy boot camp. I was an intelligence specialist, so I went through an intelligence training program, and then I also initially worked in drug interdiction. So I went to the law enforcement and drug interdiction school. I eventually went to several other operational intelligence programs that taught me to deal with that, so I had a lot of advanced training, and then ultimately I went to SEAL training.
Intelligence specialists gather information from a number of different sources, as well as turning raw data into data that can be used to perform actions. During the war, they would serve on large ships, dividing time between assignments in Bosnia-Herzegovina and the ship. Drug interdiction focuses on the interception of illegal drugs being smuggled by air, sea, or land.
I was smart enough to know that I needed to grow up, and I needed to learn some responsibility, and it had been around that others in my family had taken, and it was by far the best choice I ever made. Is the first choice I made as an adult. But fortunately, it was a moment of clarity, and I realized that I needed to go. We did take an exchange fire with enemy combatants. Again, my experiences there, I was in for either days or a week at a time and then back out. We were deployed off of an aircraft carrier. Yeah, we were involved. We did encounter paramilitary operations, and we had to get involved in those.
In August of 1995, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization joined with Croatian forces to bomb Bosnian Serbian positions and a ground defense. This attack was in response to a UN ultimatum which the Serbians refused to agree to. With its military under assault, Serbia was afraid to enter peace negotiations. The peace talks, sponsored by the U.S., resulted in the creation of federalized Bosnia, which would be divided between a Croatian Bosniak Federation and a Serbian Republic.
It was a very frustrating situation because it was difficult at the time to understand if we had any impact. It seemed like initially that the bad guys got away with bad things, so I was very frustrated for many years until the war trial started, or the war criminal trial started, and they started going after some of the real bad guys. So I guess it was just a frustration, but from a distance. It was life-changing. It's something going through something like experiencing that is, again, it's life-changing, whether it be just the experiences of seeing what that part of the world was like, the damage that's done, the first time you hear that snap of a round go by your head. But the other part is, I was in and out of the country in small, short type of durations. I wasn't in country for a long period of time, so it was definitely a different conflict than the situations in Iraq and Afghanistan where people were spending large amounts of time. So I think that was my impact. It was very different.